All right, hello
Testing,
everyone.
testing.
I had this idea of starting a series of interviews, and the way I went about it was that I just went on my Facebook and messaged like all the famous people that play Magic there, and Ben Rubin was one of them, and he was kind enough to agree to make an interview with me. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Petr.
We actually don't know each other that much. I think like one of our few interactions was actually in Pro Tour Kyoto, where we met each other at a party in a nightclub. But besides that, I don't really know you that well. Like I obviously know you because you're in Hall of Fame and stuff like that. But you know, I was playing on the Pro Tour for about like 6 years, and I was like following Magic closely even before that. But most of your like really good finishes were even before that, so I actually don't even like know that much. I made some like research, so I know that you have like 4 Pro Tour top 8s, and you won like 2 Masters tournaments or something. Is that right?
Yep.
And you also have you won a GP, and you have or maybe 2 GPs, and you have 8 top 8s or something like that. So can you just like for people who maybe got into Magic because of Arena and stuff, they don't really know you. Maybe they don't even know what Hall of Fame is. So just like tell us your story. How did it all started and stuff?
Um, well, just to give some context, I think that the first really famous Magic tournaments happened in 1996.
Hmm.
So, Petr, you were probably
I was born in
there,
'94.
there you go. So you were 2 years old.
Yeah.
1996. Those were the first famous Magic tournaments. Um, and Magic started, I think, in 1994.
I think it
So
was
that gives you a little.
1993 actually. I actually
Okay.
have a Magic card here. I think it's written on it, right? Let's see. These are all tokens. Shit.
You have an alpha card or something.
No, I think doesn't it say where? No, it's 1993. There's always like
Okay.
the first year and then the year the card was released, so it's 1993.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So 1993 is when Magic starts. 1996 is when there are the first big international tournaments. For example, Tom Shem Fang won the first World Championships.
Hmm.
So I began getting really serious about Magic in 1997. I was 14 years old. I went to my first junior pro tour. That was at the time you had a junior pro tour, which was, I think, 18 and under,
Hmm.
which did not last very long.
Were actually like a lot of people in that Pro Tour? Because nowadays you don't actually have that many good players who are under 18, so how was it back then?
Yes, it was. There were a lot of players in the junior pro tour and a lot of very strong players.
Hmm.
For example, when I was in the junior pro tour, John Finkel was in the junior pro tour.
I see. Could
Yeah.
you choose to play in the one for adults even if you were under 18?
You could. You could. And to be honest, generally what would happen is people would come, they would play a couple of junior pro tours. People like John Finkel, Ole Rade, they realized, oh, we're just as good as the people in the normal tournament, and they would go and play in the normal tournament. That was the normal thing. And again, the junior pro tour lasted like a year or two. It
I
didn't
see.
last very long. I played a couple of junior pro tours, and then in 1998 I played in my first normal pro tour. It was in Los Angeles. It was on the Queen Mary, which is a ship. Which this is a crazy story, but actually my great grandfather engineered the Queen Mary.
Oh, I see.
It was built in a Scottish shipyard in Glasgow. But come the year 1998, it's parked in a harbor in Long Beach, California. And that used to be one of the famous Pro Tour stops. I think only like 4 years, but at the time it was a famous Pro Tour stop. You had Pro Tour Los Angeles every year, Pro Tour New York every year.
Why
You would
why
have
was that the case? Like, was it just cheaper to like hold it there, or what was the reasons why they were choosing all these places all over again?
It was a perfect spot for a pro tour because they had a huge convention area, several floors, so you could look out into the middle of the hotel area and you could see every floor. So one floor was the pro tour, another floor was like the side tournaments, and then they had a ton of small rooms. And at the time, you know, it was things were different. You would go and you would stay in a small room with your friend or whatever, have a little difficulty sleeping, and then you get up and play. But we took over the entire ship. I mean, the whole ship was just pro tour people. Either people playing or judging or watching or playing side tournaments or whatever. So that was my first kind of real pro tour, the adult pro tour. I was 15 years old. And of course I practiced like crazy. And I'm sure that I was wrong about a lot of things, but I came in second. And I was a 15-year-old kid, and you can maybe imagine what it's like for a 15-year-old kid to come second in a pro tour.
Well, I actually can't, but I'm gonna pretend that I can.
$15,000, and I was on my face on a magazine, and there were interviews and all this stuff. It was a very strange thing.
Did it get into your head, like, were you maybe a little bit cocky because of that? Like, you know, it happens to a lot of kids when they experience success. All of a sudden, when they're like still kids, you know, it maybe gets into their head, and they, you know, maybe don't treat the other people the way they should and stuff like that. Was it the case for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
well, the thing I think, especially, I don't know, but for me, I was a 15-year-old kid. A 15-year-old kid, you're somewhere in this weird place between being a child and an adult. You know, I was an adult size. I was nearly full grown, and I was very smart, and I had a lot of things to say. But at the same time, I had no idea what it was like to have a job. I had no idea what it was like to have a girlfriend. I didn't even have a bank account. So all of a sudden being famous, and, you know, I had people asking me, hey, Ben, what kind of music do you like? Or, you know, what do you like to do when you're not playing Magic? Or that kind of thing. It's very strange for a 15-year-old. So I played a few more tournaments, and then I went to the World Championships that year. I practiced like crazy. At the time, there was a little bit of a tradition that people would go to Seattle to practice for the World Championships. And there was a group
it like
of...
nothing to do with where the Pro Tour was played, but everyone just went to Seattle to test?
Well, at that time, the World Championships was always in Seattle.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Because that's where the Wizards headquarters was.
Yeah.
It was, you know, at the time, there was more of, Magic had a little bit of a more specific cultural environment. So you would go to a place, and it was like, not only was it a competition, but you were meeting a lot of other people who were into Magic. And it was just more, it was more of a celebration than it is, well, I can't say what it's like now. But during the last few Pro Tours I played in, we went to a place and we played, and it was like kind of strictly business. You know, you go and you compete.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
But in the old days, it was not like that. You would go to a place and you would play in the big tournament, but the big tournament was just a part of an overall celebration and demonstration of this amazing thing, which was Magic. And at the time, it was an amazing thing. It was like, you know, Magic was a pretty new game. You had all these people getting together, meeting people who were also really crazy about this strange card game. So it was much more of a festive thing. So every year the World Championships was in Seattle. You would go, you would look at the Wizards of the Coast headquarters, you would go to the cafe, which is next door to the Wizards of the Coast headquarters. you'd play the games there. They weren't Magic, but they were, fantasy games, and then eventually you would play the World Championships. So I went first to Vancouver, which is a beautiful city just north. It's in Canada, just north of Seattle, to practice. And I mean, it was amazing. I was a 15-year-old kid, but I got to practice with some of the great, I got to practice with John Finkel, Steve O'Mahony Schwartz. At the time, you may not know these people, but the best of Canada: Gabe Sang, Ryan Fuller, Terry Sang.
Yeah, I actually don't know them. Yeah.
At the time, Ole Rade.
I know Ole Rade.
Darwin Castle. Just, it was like a real meeting of Brian Hacker, Truck Bowie. This was a long time ago. Anyway, I stayed there for a week or two practicing, and then we played the World Championships, and I came in second again.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. Of course, I was exhausted. It was 3 days of competition. I was 15. I didn't know, Again, 15, you don't know much about the world. That's where it started for me. And of course, as a kid in high school, Magic was the center of my life. I didn't have that much else to think about. And over the next few years, I had a few more top 8s. I won a couple of Masters. I think I won a Grand Prix in there somewhere. I made a lot of money through Magic. I met a lot of people. And that was the main thing in my life for about 4 years. And as I got older, it tailed off. I was less focused on it, less time practicing. Mm-hmm. But I still played in a lot of tournaments. And to be honest, there were many tournaments where I was quite well prepared. And, I came in 25th or 19th or 10th or 31st. Could have easily won or come in top 8. But I had more of my luck early on, for sure. And in fact, in my very last tournament, which was in the Team Pro Tour, I went 11-3 with Turbo Fog. My team didn't do very well, but I would have, if it had been a normal Pro Tour, 11-3, I would have made top 8. But that was my last Pro Tour. That was
Was it the deck with like Teferi and
Yeah.
It became kind of a little bit bad right after the tournament because people knew about it and everyone was packing hate. But I can imagine that at that tournament it was insane. I was really scared to face it. I did it. Okay. Yeah. So you were inducted into the Hall of Fame, but then you stopped playing Magic for some time. But about in 2015, you started playing Pro Tours again, and you joined the team Pantheon, and you played most of the Pro Tours since then. What was the reason why you came back? Were you just missing the friends, the competition? Maybe you had more free time. Like, what was the reason?
Yeah, I took some time off of work, quite a long time, actually 4 years. I took outside of work, and I went back to school, and I did lots of other stuff. But during that time, I was missing spending time with really smart people and being competitive, and there's a certain part of my brain that wasn't working. So I went to a team Grand Prix in San Jose, California, which is near where I was living at the time. And I think my team came in like 5th place. We missed top 4 by 1 or 2 slots. But I was very excited. It was the adrenaline rush of playing a tournament and learning and trying things out and seeing old friends and stuff. So I was in touch with a few old friends, William Jensen and some others, and I joined Pantheon because I was not working at the time and I had a lot more freedom to travel. And I played about 3 years worth of tournaments. And yeah, basically it's because I had more time.
Okay, cool. How is it with Magic and you right now? Because we have Corona, there are no card tournaments, and maybe that's not the case for you, but maybe for myself, I always perceive the online play as basically just a preparation for the actual tournaments. I enjoy it way less. I enjoy playing with the real cards way more. So, are you playing, like, for example, Magic Arena at all, or, what's your state with Magic right now?
Well, that's interesting to hear that you see the online as a preparation, as a tool, and that the real thing is real life. When I was preparing with Team Pantheon, which is an amazing team full of incredibly talented, I mean, we had Reed Duke, Owen Turtenwald, John Finkel, Jelger Wiegersma, I mean, William Jensen, I mean, Gabriel Nassif, Kai Bud, I mean, it was an obscene group of players. It was obvious to me that preparing online was much more efficient than preparing with real cards. Just cycling through new decks and trying things out, and even just having the game start faster, not having to shuffle. I mean, it was just like obvious that playing online was more efficient. But we still tried to play with real cards because we all like playing with real cards, I mean, we all spend too much time on the computer already. We prefer to be with real cards. And for me, that was a big problem. I work on the computer all day, and I get my news through the computer, and then I chat with people like you through the computer. So, Magic being one more thing on the computer is like, ay. So for me, that's a major problem with the direction that Magic has gone. No judgment. I mean, the world is moving forward. It's not like we can't forego this internet, electronic, computer age. But for me, the charm of playing Magic is having a real life experience with a real person. It's very hard for me to imagine taking Magic seriously if it's all online. So I sort of hope that one day people inside of Magic will be less worried about making a Hearthstone competitor and more interested in providing like a real life brick and mortar experience, which, let's face it, is getting harder and harder to find. I mean, when I was a kid, if you were a nerdy guy or girl who wanted to find an activity that was creative to play with other people and competitive, you didn't have that many options. You could play Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, or you could play maybe World of Warcraft, or you could play chess or bridge. But none of those had the kind of creative depth of something like Magic, where you build your own deck and you come and you see what other people are doing and you learn and you come back and you try a new strategy. Magic was kind of unique. As the years have gone by, a lot of other things have come up which are really interesting for that type of kid. Even something like learning programming, or just taking classes online, or working on investments or anything. There's all kinds of things kids can do now. So for me, Magic's special place is as a card game, not as an electronic endeavor.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
Yeah, so who knows? But for me, the idea of playing all electronic, that was never exciting for me. That was a necessary evil.
So are you like not playing at all right now because of that?
Yeah, I only play with real cards. I do have a friend who has a cube, and occasionally he wants to play, and I'm happy to play. It's a fun thing to do. But something like Magic Arena, I never got into it. Magic Online, I haven't touched my account in several years.
Do you think that if this Corona things go away and maybe we start having Grand Prix again, because I don't really think they want to completely kill the real Magic. I mean, they are printing cards. It's like the big part of their income, right? So I don't think it's in their best interest to do that. Do you think that if those tournaments come back, you will start playing again?
At this moment, it's not something I'm excited about. Of course, at some level, I wish I would love to have time to go back and try to prove that I'm, a great player still, and we all have fantasies like that, and I don't know if it's true or not. When I did come back for 3 years or so, I had some success, and I was definitely part of a few good decks. I helped out a lot with William Jensen when he won the World Championships with Teamer, and I would say I was the lead architect of the Dark Jeskai that John Finkel and Owen Turtenwald made the top 8 of and became big in the Grand Prix series. And I had a few other, little successes, but I was not as successful as I would have liked. I would love to have another chance at it, but I'm not. It's not a big part of what I'm thinking about right now.
Okay. So one last question is not gonna be connected to Magic. We briefly chat right before this interview, and you mentioned that you actually live in Costa Rica, if I heard correctly. That's very interesting to me. Like, I've actually never been there. Like, how did you even like get there? Like, how is the life there? Like, just tell us something, because like I have just no idea basically.
Well, I don't know if you've ever looked for a job.
I did a couple of times, but I don't really
Couple of
want to talk
times.
about it that much.
Well, nowadays you look for a job, and it's like you have one option in Washington, another option is in Ireland, and another option is in Costa Rica, and at some point you just decide. And that's what happened for me. I mean, there were a lot of places I was thinking about, and this was just the offer that I liked best, so I ended up here. I always wanted to live in Latin America. I think Latin American culture is really interesting. It has a richness and a friendliness and an openness that you don't get in places like California, where I'm from. So that part of it I'm really enjoying, and I think Latin America is a really interesting place. I've been here about 2 years, and it's been a lot of fun. Obviously, I'm not a Costa Rican, and I stick out like a sore thumb. And people are amazed that I can even say hello and goodbye in Spanish.
Can you actually like speak in Spanish now after 2 years, or are you still like getting there?
I do speak. My Spanish is nowhere near your English, and it probably
Thanks.
never will be. But I'm very excited about languages. I think the acquisition of language is a really beautiful process. So I try, and I can have conversations,
That's
in a
awesome.
taxi cab or on a date if the girl's really interested. But certainly, I'm not extremely comfortable.
Can you speak like some other languages besides Spanish? Because I think for a native English speaker, learning new languages is, first of all, it's kind of rare, and I think it's also harder because America is a huge part of the world, so we are basically kind of forced to learn English. Like, all the internet is in English and stuff like that. And once you learn the first one, you kind of like learn how to work with like maybe a limited vocabulary, how to learn the language, and then the second one becomes easier. But you're a native English speaker, so I just wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, well, let me ask you. So Czech is part of the.
Czech is just Czech, and we have Czech language, but it's like,
It's in the Russian family, right?
yeah, like 3,000 years ago it was the same language, so I can maybe
Okay.
understand like 30% of Russian or something.
Right. And you have a lot of different conjugations and tenses and
Yeah, we do. It's
suffixes and stuff.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
one of the hardest languages,
I've heard
language
that.
groups in the world. Yeah.
I've heard that. Um, yeah, and what age were you when you got serious about learning English?
Well, my father forced me to learn since I was like 7 or something, and then we just have it in school. But to be fair, a lot of people, even my age, can actually really speak English here. Like the people who travel and maybe go to college, they do. But like someone who's like 40 years old or more definitely doesn't speak English, and even at in my age group, I would say it's like maybe 20% of the population can have a conversation in English. So, when you meet like me, Martin Yuza, Andrei Strasky and stuff, you would maybe assume that we just all speak English, but it's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, well, I've had many colleagues, not from Prague, but from that area of the world, and I have experienced many levels of English, some of which are not exactly English, but sort of good enough. You're absolutely right. It's very hard for Americans to learn new languages, partly because so many people speak English. I did learn Hebrew as a kid. I went to a Jewish school. I'm of Jewish heritage. I had a bar mitzvah, and I do speak it well. I understand it a bit. Um, but unfortunately, in the United States, learning language is just not something people are excited about. Um, I think languages are fascinating. I think the acquisition of language is fascinating. Um, and I
I'm
think,
sorry to interrupt.
go ahead.
I just wanted to follow on what you said. I think one of the most interesting things that I learned when I learned new languages was that the people in certain countries, they actually speak different. So what I'm trying to say is, if I just translated word by word what I'm saying in English, it would actually make no sense in Czech or in any other language. You just kind of have to learn how do people think, and which words they use in certain occasions and stuff. And it's just fascinating. And the more languages you learn, you just like kind of become a bigger person, because you have to like understand the different mentality and stuff. And it's just amazing. So
Yeah, I agree. For example, in Spanish, if I say, "Can I have a glass of water?" Pueda tener un vaso de agua. That would seem like almost like I'm begging for a glass of water. Like,
yeah.
please. In English, that's completely normal. Can I have a glass of water? Is completely normal. But in Spanish, that's like you sound silly saying
So what do
that.
you say? You just say, "Give me that water" or something?
Yes, exactly. Me da un vaso de agua is give me a glass of water.
Yeah.
Or you could say quiero un vaso de agua. I want a glass of water. Um, so yeah, you can see exactly. There's a level of bluntness, and I imagine that Japanese and English might be similar in this way, where when we want something, it's a very roundabout way. So if I want someone's attention, I wouldn't say like, "Hey Peter, come over here." I would say, "Hey Peter, are you free, or am I bothering you?" And then after you say, "Oh, it's okay," I would say, "When you have a moment, could you come over here?" That would
Yeah,
be the
it's
way we
actually
would say it in
actually in
English.
Japanese it's even more like that.
Even
So
more.
even though I already knew English and I was interested in Japanese culture for a long time, even for me, a lot of the times I just like came out like extremely rude, even though it wasn't my intention at all. I just like wanted to say something, and they just perceive it as wrong. For example, they don't really say you. It's just rude to say
Right.
you, and you just
You
have
don't
to
say
use.
anata.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just say the person's name and stuff like that. And it was just like a lot of people just like didn't like me because I came out as rude. Maybe if they never were outside of Japan, that's just their norm, right? They don't know that we speak that way or whatever. And that's just, what they've heard from me, and in their language that just means that I'm rude or whatever. So, I after like half a year or something, I kind of like learn how to approach people in the right way, but I definitely had issues with that for sure.
I can imagine. And what is it like in Czech? Would you say it is more direct than English or
It's
less
very
direct?
direct, and it's kind of
Very
normal
direct.
to be rude. It's actually it's actually you're kind of like rude, but you don't really mean that, and like everyone understands that, so you're like basically just like jokingly rude, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And it's actually the opposite. Like you're basically like jokingly rude, and if the other person gets offended, then you're like, hey, what the hell? He just like doesn't understand how this works. I wasn't like trying to be rude or anything. It was just a joke. So you just kind of like, but I was born here, so it's just normal to me. But maybe if Czech people go on a vacation and they keep behaving this way, they might come out as like kind of rude, maybe like too sarcastic, maybe making fun of people too much and stuff like that. So.
Right. I actually find I've been working in an office with a lot of people who speak English beautifully, but who are native Spanish speakers. And when they speak English, it's really fun to hear the way that they use the language. They don't say, "Hey, Petr, do you have a moment?" They say, "Hey, Petr, come here." Even to their boss. Their boss, they say, "Hey, Petr, come here."
Yeah.
Which for me is like beautiful. It's very intimate. It's like they have a trust that they can say, "Hey, come here." And they trust that the other person, if they're busy, they'll say, "Estoy ocupado, I'm busy." Whereas for a native English speaker, even with my family, all the time we're saying, "Now, might you have a moment? Tell me when you're free, then maybe you could come."
Yeah.
There's all of this kind of...
It's kind of unnecessary a lot of the times.
And in British English, it's even worse. So for me, it's beautiful to see how other people use English.
All right, awesome. I think we already have like 40 minutes, so that should be enough. If there's like anything else you would like to say, now is the right time.
Well.
If not, it's also fine, I just wanted to ask. I didn't want to just like cut it and say goodbye, basically.
All right, fair enough. I'm sure there's all kinds of pearls of wisdom that I could share, but I don't have anything right now. Nice talking to you.
Same. Thank you very much.
Really
for
great
taking
to hear
time.
your perspective. Good luck with your series, or are you doing a podcast or YouTube videos, or
Just YouTube videos. Like I don't really have that much to do, and I thought that like it's just like a good idea of content maybe. Like I know most of the people from the Pro Tour, so I can actually maybe like message people, and a lot of them will say yes. Whereas if the people don't know the guy who's asking, maybe a lot of people will say no. So I thought that no one is really doing interviews with pros, and maybe a lot of people would be interested in that. So why not? It's fun for me anyway. I just get to talk to interesting people, so why not?
Great. All right, well, Petr, really nice talking to
Thank
you.
you, same.
I wish you luck, and take care. Maybe I'll see you around.
Bye bye.
Okay.